All the Young Dudes by MsKingBean89, Chapter 109, 6th Year, Eniochus. Friday, 4th March 1977. "I'm going to go mad," Marlene said, one evening as the library was closing. She pressed her fingers into her eyes, exhausted. Her hair was fluffed up on her head like a dandelion from running her hands through it so often. "I thought the owls were bad." "That rhymes," Mary sang, cheerfully, neatly rolling up a parchment. "Helpful. Thanks, McDonald's." Marlene rolled her eyes. "You decided to keep potions." Mary bopped her friend lightly on the head with a rolled-up essay. "It's a requirement for healer training college," Marlene sighed. "I wish I didn't have to do it." "I don't know why you all laid it so much," Lily yawned, hoisting a satchel onto his shoulder. "Potions is fun. It's logical." "Oh, shut up, Evans," Mary and Marlene said in unison. Remus laughed and put a fond arm around the redhead. "Poor Lily," he said, in mock sympathy. "So misunderstood in your quest for knowledge." She laughed too, and they all left the library together. They'd been there every night of the week, except when Lily had prefect duties or Marlene had Quidditch. Then it was just Remus and Mary, which was surprisingly okay. Mary had made a few teasing jibes at their brief liaison, but hadn't mentioned wanting to do it again, and appeared to be seeing Roman rather-eyed once more. Remus was relieved. One secret affair was quite enough. It was early to be revising, but the four of them had decided to reconvene their study group this year in order to get through the first stage of their newts. Final exams were still over a year away, but in Remus and Lily's opinion, there was no such thing as being too prepared, particularly with the foundation year exams due in June. "I'm knackered," Mary said, as they approached the portrait of the fat lady. A wig had been removed by Professor Flitwick only a few days beforehand. She'd apparently grown quite fond of it. "Day off tomorrow?" "If you want," Remus said, catching a yawn. "I said I'd do a big study group on Sunday, so I'd be glad off the rest." "I don't know how you do it, Lupin." Mary shook her head in disbelief. "That's perfect, though. Leave Saturday evening free." "Got another date with Roman, have you?" Marlene asked, sounding a bit annoyed. "Yes, Marlene," Mary rolled her eyes, despite your very apparent disapproval. "I just think you ought to slow down, that's all," Marlene snapped, running her fingers through her hair again. "Well, as we've discussed before, it's none of your business who I go out with, is it?" Mary said, arching an eyebrow at her friend. Marlene had turned an uncharacteristic shade of hot pink and was looking at the floor. Remus looked at both girls in surprise. He'd never seen them talk to each other like that before. Usually they were the best of friends. "Come on, we're all tired," Lily said, pushing forward. Blatherskite, she addressed the fat lady, who moved aside so they could all enter. "Evans!" James's shout met them even before they were halfway through. Yeah, good evening, Potter," Lily sighed, shaking her head. Remus caught her tiny smile, though she tried to cover it behind her long hair. "And Mooney," James continued, "where have you been?" "Making furious love to us all, obviously," Mary said, deadpan, pushing Sirius aside to sit nearest the fireplace. "It's true," Lily grinned, sitting on the hearthrug. "He's a stallion." "It took all three of us to satisfy him," Marlene piped up, looking a bit happier. "Oh my God, please shut up," Remus groaned, taking a seat in his usual armchair. "We were in the library, as if you didn't know." "Ah, of course," James winked at him. "Say no more, Casanova." "Brr," Mary held her hands up to the fire. "This castle is freezing." "Scotland is freezing," Sirius replied, monotonously. He was levitating a paper plane lazily about the room, slouching down in his chair. "It's only March," Lily said, perkily. "It'll start warming up soon enough. I can't wait for summer." "Nah, then I'll be too hot," Mary sighed. "Our flat is ridiculous, even if you open all the windows. Suppose I can do magic this year, though. Am I allowed to if my family are muggles?" "Oh, I do," Lily said, biting her lip. "Are we not supposed to?" "Why don't you come and stay with me, Mary?" Marlene said. "More room in our house. It's cooler." "Well, I wouldn't mind a holiday," Mary mused, still rubbing her hands. "I haven't had one since Dad lost his job. We used to go to the seaside every year. Margaret or Skegness." "Ooh, I went to Cornwall last year," Lily said. It was lovely. We camped right near the beach. Camping again? Sirius grumbled. Don't get Potter started. Evans, have I ever told you how much I love camping? James said, grinning madly from his position at the mantelpiece. He was fiddling with his golden snitch, tossing it from pom to pom. It's one of my greatest pleasures in life. I'm talking about muggle camping, Potter, Lily tottered, smoothing her skirt over her knees self-consciously. In muggle tents, no fancy extension charms. Can't be that different, James replied, undeterred. These two haven't even been camping. He nodded to Remus and Sirius. We sort of did, over Christmas, Remus said, throwing a daring glance at Sirius, who gave him a slow, conspiratorial smile. Hey, James said, suddenly, tossing the snitch eye in the air, then reaching to snatch it back. We should all go camping. What? Sirius said, sitting up. This summer, James nodded, excited. It's our last summer before we all have to be grown-ups, and we'll all be of age. We should do it. All of us? Marlene asked. I and Mary. All of us, James confirmed. What do you think, Evans? Well, Lily looked up at him. Separate tents for boys and girls, right? Pfft, you're no fun, Mary smirked. Lily kicked her from the floor and continued. Okay, Potter, on one condition. Anything. Muggle tents. Oh. Saturday, 5th March 1977. If you are 17 years of age or were turned 17 on or before the 31st of August 1977, you are eligible for a 12-week course of apparition lessons from a Ministry of Magic apparition instructor beginning on Monday, 4th April 1977. Please sign below if you would like to participate. Cost, 12 galleons. Remus stared up at the notice pinned to the Gryffindor notice board inside. I'll lend you the money, Sirius said, at his shoulder. I'd rather you didn't. Remus, I'm ridiculously rich. I'm quite aware of that, he snapped, irritably. He looked at the board again. Remus had wanted to learn how to apparate for almost his entire time at Hogwarts. Okay, he nodded. But I'll pay you back. I really will. I know, Sirius nudged him with his zip, playfully. You're going to be making more money than any of us one day, you big swat. Ha! Remus snorted. Not likely, unless Dumbledore gets his act together. Dumbledore? What's he got to do with anything? Remus looked around, furtively. The common room wasn't busy, but it wasn't empty either. I can't tell you here, he said. Upstairs? Sirius cocked his head with a mock innocent expression that made Remus burst out laughing. Not for that. Get your mind out of the gutter, Black. They headed up to the bedroom. It was nice and quiet there. Peter was serving a detention somewhere with Filch, and James was patrolling. So, Sirius went straight for Remus's bed, sitting cross-legged and alert. What's going on with Dumbledore? Remus sat down opposite him, not too close. Remember I had that dinner with Ferox, after I met Livia? Yeah, of course. Sirius sobered up at once. They hadn't discussed it since they'd made up. Okay, well, don't be angry with me, but I sort of made some demands on Dumbledore. Sirius stared at him blankly. Remus continued with an odd swallow. I told him that if they want me to help them, if they want me to be an emissary to the werewolves or whatever, then I wanted something in return. Protection, for the others in Greyback's pack, first of all. Sirius opened his mouth, then, apparently thinking better of it, closed it again and waited. Remus carried on, watching him carefully for any sign of anger or disapproval. And I've asked not to be forced to sign the register on my birthday. Well, that's reasonable at least, Sirius breathed. But Moony, the other thing. I know, Remus nodded. They're murderers, some of them. I know that. But I don't think they know any other way. I think that if we want to show them that there are other choices, better ways to live, then that has to start with kindness. Kindness, Sirius repeated. Not forgiveness, Remus said, quickly. I'm not saying they should go completely unpunished, but you have to admit, the Ministry has handled lycanthropy pretty poorly so far. When we win this war, there's a chance to make things better, for all wizards, even half-breeds. Sirius was looking back at him, his brow very slightly furrowed, his deep blue eyes focused intensely, as if he was searching for something in Remus's face. Then he gave a slight nod. "This is really important to you, isn't it?" "Yes," Remus said, without missing a beat. "You'll have to convince a lot of people." Remus nodded. "I know." "We'll help you, though," Sirius said, not breaking eye contact. "Me and Peter and James. Evans too, probably. That girl worships you." "I couldn't ask." "You don't need to." Sirius shook his head. He leaned forward and kissed Remus so gently on the lips, barely a whisper. Anything for Aunt Mooney. Later that day, Remus was on his way to Flitwick's classroom. The kindly charms professor had allowed him to use it for his tutoring sessions, provided everything was tidied up afterwards. He had a map of the south coast in his bag, and was hoping to get there early enough to have the chance to study it. If they were all going on holiday that summer, then someone was going to have to organise it. The first full moon of the summer would fall on the 1st of July, and Remus was hoping to stay one extra night at Hogwarts for that. He had already asked James if he could stay with the Potters for the following week, and James, of course, had eagerly agreed. Then they would have the camping trip, and then Remus didn't have a clue what his next move would be. Back to Mile End, maybe, if Grant was still there. He couldn't just stay at the Potters forever, not once he was 17. "Hiya, Remus," Christopher waved, already waiting outside the classroom. Remus's heart sank, slightly. Of course Christopher was early. He never missed a chance to catch Remus alone. "Morning, Chris," he smiled, politely. "Shall we go in?" They charmed the desk into a horseshoe shape so there would be plenty of room for practical demonstrations, then settled down, pulling out their books. "What are you doing after?" Christopher asked, over keen. "Dinner," Remus said, mildly, smoothing down his map and locating Cornwall. "Then detention, I'm afraid. Too late." It was a full moon, though he'd be in detention even if it wasn't. McGonagall never went back on her punishment. "That's a shame," Christopher sighed. "You're always in detention these days." "Yep," Remus laughed. "I'm a no-good yob." Christopher laughed, awkwardly. He meant well enough, but Remus had the impression that he was rarely comfortable with Marauder-style humour. It took getting used to. "Have you read this?" Christopher pushed a book across the desk, covering up the beach Remus had been inspecting. He sighed and looked at it. The Charioteer. "Nope," Remus shook his head, picking it up and reading the blurb. After an injury at Dunkirk, Laurie O'Dell is sent to a veterans hospital to convalesce. There, he befriends Andrew, a conscientious objector serving as an orderly. But when Ralph, a mentor from his school days, reappears in his life, Laurie is forced to choose between the sweet ideals of innocence and the distinct pleasures of experience. Oh, Remus thought. It's that sort of book. "It's a Muggle book," Christopher explained, excitedly. "It's really good. You can borrow it. I'd love to know what you think." "Yeah, I'll give it a go. Cheers," Remus nodded, quickly hiding it in the bottom of his bag before anyone else came in. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Both boys turned around to see Emmeline Vance poke her head around the door. She was an immensely beautiful girl, with a tumble of golden curls and large apple-green eyes. Another Ravenclaw, she was a 7th-year Chew, and had previously gone out with Roman Rotherhide himself. She smiled, stepping in. "Hello, Remus," she said, in a soft, girlish voice. He tried to be polite back, but he knew he sounded cold. "Hello, Emmeline. I didn't expect you." "Oh, no. I'm not here for your little study club thing." She smiled again, scrunching up her nose in a way that might have seemed cute or endearing to anyone but Remus and Christopher. "I was hoping Sirius would be here." "He isn't." "No, I see that," she laughed, throatily, sweeping her hair over one shoulder. "But he said he'd meet me in the astronomy tower half an hour ago." Remus just shrugged at her, face blank. She tutted. "Well, if you see him, will you tell him to meet me tonight after curfew?" "He's busy tonight." "Doing what?" "Oh, he's not seeing that MacDonald girl again, is he?" "You never know, with Sirius," Remus said, cruelly, trying not to smirk. "Well, you tell him that if he's not careful, he's going to lose me." "Oh, I definitely will." She closed the door, and Remus snorted, shaking his head. Do you actually know where he is? Christopher asked, with a small frown. Nah, Remus replied, but I could guess. He's probably with James somewhere. Those two, Christopher sighed. They're funny sometimes, but they cause so much trouble. How on earth Potter managed to end up a prefix, I have no idea. And Black, he's just what? Remus said, sharply. Christopher blinked, startled. I know he's your friend. Sorry, I just meant he's an arrogant tosser sometimes. Yeah, Remus nodded. Loosen her up. He thought about Sirius's promise, made a little more than an hour ago on Remus's bed. If other people couldn't see that Sirius, then it was their loss. Who were Emmeline and Christopher in the grand scheme of things? Not marauders, not important. You're not wrong, Remus shrugged. Right, where do you want to start?